Welcome back to Close to Broke. My name is Kieran, and today we are at the Commerce Casino. Playing the 510, there was 15 people on the list today. It's around 7 o'clock right now, so it's getting a little late. I appreciate you guys always for coming through. A couple of really quick things that I have to let you guys know about. We're gonna be hosting our very first meetup game on the East Coast at the Horseshoe Casino. As you guys can see from the flyer right here, it's gonna be happening on April 24th at 2 p.m. Be there or be square. The biggest news, the most important thing about this is my biggest concern when I do these meetup games is, and what is the incentive on my players for coming? What is the incentive for our community as Close to Broke and Wolfgang's community to show up? Well, I was able to drive home a good deal. Hear me out, $300 high hands every 20 minutes for the entirety of the meetup game. That's pretty unheard of, I think. So I'm gonna bring the value. My biggest concern is that you guys enjoy yourselves and you guys have a fun time. I don't think this has been done at any other meetup game, so it's a big deal for me. Let's hop into today's video. It's gonna be a ton of fun. Super excited to see you guys.
Well, if it isn't us again here in our favorite casino, the Commerce. Sitting down at the 500 to 1500, which is the 510 game here, in for a max of 1500. Let's hop into today's session because it is a whirlwind of emotions and you guys are going to be pretty excited about the outcome. We are ready to get loose here. Might have to break down and do a little bit of funky dancing if you know what I'm saying. But anyways, we look down at Queen Deuce of Diamonds here. Shout out to Israeli Ron. We're going to go ahead and open here from the low jack. The hijack makes a call and the big blind makes a call. I realize this hand is very loose, but our action player in the big blind, don't mind playing with him at all, trying to get in pots with him. If we can make a big hand, it usually works out in our favor. Anyways, the flop comes King 8-3, all diamonds. Well, couldn't have asked for a better flop, if I'm going to be totally honest with you guys. Flopping the second nuts with Queen Deuce of Diamonds. Action checks over to me. I'm going to go ahead and play inflow here by betting $60, going about 2/3 sizing here. Again, getting ready to bet a pretty large amount on the turn, depending on what occurs. The hijack folds, and the big blind, who's the action player, decides to make the call. And the turn card comes the 9 of hearts. This now adds some equity to some random holdings, whether they're improved to 2 pair, whether they're improved to an open-ended straight draw. There's a lot of options here. When he checks over to me, I bet $250, sizing up definitely here. I think that's the optimal thing to do. We don't want to make it small here. We're obviously going to have some bluffs here as well. Unfortunately, my opponent pretty quickly makes a fold, and that'll take it down for our very first hand of the session. Moving right along in this next hand, we do have the blind raise. As you guys know, I almost preach about it every session I play here, but at the Commerce Casino, for whatever reason, you're not allowed to straddle. It's considered a blind raise, whatever the case may be. We're trying to make this game action-packed, so we throw out the $20 blind raise. My opponent from the button decides to raise it up to $60. He's the action player from the previous hand. When it gets over to me here in the blind raise, I look down at pocket jacks. This is what people write movies about. The action player that took all my money last session is raising the button, and I'm in the blind raise with a massive hand. I decide to 3-bet here for $200, and this movie is being written by Quentin Tarantino, it seems like, as he decides to make the call. We're going off to a flop, but looks like there's a Shyamalan twist as it comes ace, queen, 9, rainbow. Pretty much as bad as it gets. It's very easy for my opponent to not hit this board at all. And as far as ranges go, I should be having the nut advantage on this board. So I decide to downbet for $110, what I'd be doing for a lot of my range here. My opponent pretty quickly makes a call, and we're going off to a turn card that comes the 10 of hearts. As you guys can see, the full rainbow is out there, and I kind of don't want to give up the aggression here. I can easily represent a straight at this point, considering I am double blocking the nuts. I'm still going to have the nut advantage on this board texture. I can have all the king jacks, I can have all the aces, all the queens, all the 9s, all the 10s. So when that's the case, I decide to bet once again for $275. Yet again, my opponent makes a call, so at this point, our movie is not looking very good until, bang, yet another Shyamalan twist as the river comes a jack. We now improve to a set. Although a king does make a better hand, I'm going to go ahead and throw out a blocker bet. The purpose of my bet here is obviously to get some form of value. There's obviously a ton of 2-pair possibilities for my opponent to have out there, as well as maybe sometimes he can call even weaker than that. I throw out $100 to put my opponent in a very weird spot. After about 30 seconds of tanking, which is pretty long for my opponent, honestly, he ends up throwing in the call. If he takes that long, I'm never ever worried about being bad. I let him know I have a set of jacks. He tells us that is good, and yet again we get saved on the river. It's only right because he did rivers last time in that last massive pot. Either way, poker's a marathon, right? So to this point, the session has been, I guess, for the lightest terms I can put it, it's been going absolutely perfect. I mean, we've been getting there when we needed to, and yeah, things aren't changing anytime soon. In the following hand, we look down at 8-9 of hearts. I'm in early position. I decide to make it $35. The button and the big blind both make the call, and we're going off to a flop that comes ace, jack, 9, rainbow. This is going to be a board texture that's beneficial for my range as opposed to my opponent's flatting ranges. So when that's the case, I decide to c-bet for $55. Don't need to be going too large on this board texture. Anywhere around half pot seems very reasonable. What's not reasonable is my opponent on the button raising to $200. The big blind gets out of the way and is back onto me. Considering I do have a ton of really strong backdoor equity, I'm sure some people don't like the sound of that. It sounds pretty fishy. Well, whatever. I guess it is. The one thing I do have is a pair, and it's kind of hard to make a pair in poker. My opponent can have some bluffs here for sure, as he can definitely have queen 10 or 10-8, and he can also have some made hands. And if that's the case, if I hit one of my outs, there's a good chance that I can build the size of the pot. Anyways, after a little bit of pondering and pontification, I end up making the call. We're going off to a turn card that comes the 4 of diamonds. Pretty much the worst card, doesn't do anything for my hand, doesn't give me any more equity, and I'm pretty much over it at this hand. I'm pretty happy to just get it out of the way. I decide to check it over to my opponent, who decides to check it back. That is a surprise and definitely indicative of what I think is a pretty marginal holding. So when we go off to a river, that comes a 9 of clubs. Absolutely wonderful spot to be in with trips. At this point, I want to polarize myself. It's hard for me to have a really good hand. Like, this is kind of ridiculous that I have a hand this good at this point. And it's going to be more likely that I have a bluff. I will definitely be doing this with a hand like queen 10 myself or 10-8 myself. So I decide to bomb this river. Bombs away. This is ridiculous. We're just setting off World War III by myself at this point. I make it
$450.
I couldn't even get out my bet fast enough. My opponent makes the call instantly. I let him know that I rivered trips. Doesn't seem very happy about it. Ends up mucking his hand. And yet again, we take down another massive pot. Let's go. Well, the fun is not stopping there, as we look down at jack 5 of clubs from middle position, and I decide to raise it up to $35. Again, today's session, I'm going to be totally honest, I'm just trying to build big pots against our friend here in the big blind. He's the action player, as I mentioned beforehand, and we have some unfinished business because he destroyed me the last 2 times we played him on the vlog. Anyways, if that's logical or not, I guess that's up for debate, but what is happening is the button and the big blind make the call. We're going 3 ways off to a flop yet again. That comes queen 10-6 all clubs. I mean, it's kind of getting funny. Like, it's almost like I'm making this whole thing up, but I promise you I'm not. The action checks over to me, and at this point my hand can use some protection here, and I don't think that I'm ever going to get a king or an ace of clubs to fold to 1 bet at least. So I decide to bet a little bit on the larger side. $80 to go, about 80% of the size of the pot, somewhere in the realm. The button folds, and the big blind, our action friend, decides to make the call. And at this point, hoping for no club, but at least making the board maybe a little more dynamic, and that it does. The turn card comes the 7 of diamonds. This now completes some straight draws, as well as just makes the board a whole lot more connected. When the opposition checks over to me, I decide to bet again one more time for $125. At this point, I don't need to go as large. I think I kind of want to make it a little bit enticing for him to have a bluffing jamming range, or at least maybe kind of see my bet as weakness and go crazy, because that's definitely something our opponent has done in the past. This seems to be like one of those times, as our opponent ends up jamming $1,000 into the middle. I'm never folding a flop flush, definitely not on this super boring turn card. I end up making the call. We're going off to a river that comes an ace of clubs. Not happy to see that at all, but neither is my opponent. I let him know that I flopped the flush immediately on the turn, and he lets me know that that is good. Can't believe my luck. I'm feeling over the world here. Obviously, my hand was garbage, but I feel like the post-flop play was very reasonable. My thinking and my reasoning seemed okay. Like I said, today's session, I just cannot do anything wrong. In the following hand, a couple of orbits have passed. We've been playing a little more quietly or conservatively to this point. The action player decides to open at $35 from early position. The cutoff makes a call. We're on the button, and we look down at king 10 offsuit. Seems like this is a nice spot to make a 3-bet, a little on the weaker side, make a little bit of a squeeze type of play. So I go ahead and make it $125, looking to isolate at least one of these players in position. Early position makes the call. We're going off to a flop that comes as good as it can get for my specific hand, as it comes 10-6-4, 2 spades, and a diamond. I do not hold a diamond or a spade. There is definitely a possibility of a flush draw for my opponent to have. And if that's the case, when he checks over to me, I want to bet a little bit on the larger side. I end up betting $175, to which my opponent thinks that's a horrible price, as he's not in the mood to call that. But he's in the mood to jam. $800 in the middle, just like that. Again, well, specifically against him, I just will never be able to fold his hand. So I end up making the call, as this is probably the best flop I'm ever going to get for this hand, it seems like. We're going off to a run out that comes the 9 of spades on the turn, which is probably the sickest card in the deck. It brings all the straight draws. It brings more 2-pair outs. And it brings the flush. Pretty disgusting. And the river comes a deuce of clubs. I let him know I have 1 pair. He says, me too. And he ends up showing queen 10 offsuit. So we have him out-pipped by just 1. But that 1 is enough. It's not about how big your margin of victory is. It's about getting the W. And this time, I got it. I mean, this has just been almost comical how good I've been running. And just, yeah. We're running well. We're not really doing anything spectacular. It's easy to make you look like a really good player when, you know, obviously we're getting hit by the deck, but I am happy that I'm able to extract maximum value with these big hands, or these medium hands even. So I think that's the only thing that I'm doing okay at this point.
All right, folks, as you guys can see at this point, we are getting absolutely slapped by the deck. I mean, I literally I could not play anything incorrectly, and people are just going crazy into me. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes. We'll see how we're feeling. Probably got about another couple hours in me to see how we feel. We're up a lot right now, probably like at least 1 buy-in. So let's see how we can finish. I'm feeling good. Gonna hop into our favorite little gift shop, grab some water, and head out. Again, I appreciate you guys for everything. At the end of the video, I want to talk to you guys about something a little more personal. Thank you guys as always for watching. Make sure to like, comment, and subscribe. Let's get back into today's session. I'm feeling really good about my play. Let's see how we do.
There's no way my entire session goes picture perfect, right? Well, let's see. In the following hand, I'm in early position, and I look down at Queen Jack of Spades. This is a wonderful hand to have in your opening range, so I make it $35. Next to act decides to make the call, and the button decides to 3-bet at $85. The button hasn't been too active pre-flop, and this might be the first time I've seen a 3-bet, so there is a little bit of cause for pause. I'm a little worried, but my hand is definitely too strong to fold ever, so I'm going to go ahead and make the call. 4-betting seems like a little bit of a punt to me. When the action's over to the next to act player, early position number 2, he decides to make the call as well. And we're going off to a flop that comes 10, 9, 5, 2 spades, and a diamond. I mean, just, this is getting comical. This is crazy, right? Another massive flop for another one of my hands. The action checks over to the button player, who surprisingly decides to check this back. Obviously not a board texture that's really great for the 3-better, and it's a little better for the early position players here. That doesn't matter too much when the turn card comes a 9. Adds a pair to the board, not a great card, and I end up leading out here thinking that I can get my opponents to fold some ace highs and some hands that hold equity against mine. I decide to take over the betting lead and throw out a bet here. Next act decides to fold, and the button makes a call. Not sure what exactly to put him on. I think he can definitely have some kind of random pairs here, as well as some big ace highs. And when the river comes a 5 of clubs, not very happy about it. All of our equity has been bricked. As they say, we had too many outs, and that was definitely the truth here. I just don't see myself really turning this hand into a bluff. I do block a lot of the hands that I want my opponent to be holding here, so I end up checking to give up. My opponent surely has a better hand, and he does. He shows ace king here, which will take it down. Good call on the turn by him. Unfortunate that I guess we couldn't run perfect, right? Bear with me as we're catching up, so I've got to give you all the information on this following hand. But one thing I will say is that not everything in this session is going to be easy. I feel like I've got to earn a couple, so let's buckle up for these next few hands. We look down at Queen Jack offsuit. It has folded all the way to me in the big blind, and we've had a round of straddles going in this spot. And the straddles, as we mentioned, are blind raises, so I decide to raise to $70. A little over 3x seems very standard to me. The blind raiser ends up making the call, and we're going off to a flop that comes 10-8-4 with 2 spades and a diamond. We end up flopping 2 overs as well as a back door. So not a great board texture, but something I definitely can lead on the bigger sizing, because I am holding the king of spades here. That will allow me to go pretty big on some runouts. I end up betting $100 over half the size of the pot, to which my opponent pretty quickly makes a call. We're going off to a turn card that comes a 9 of spades. Well, like we said earlier, it seems like we just cannot fade, getting even more equity. Now we have an open ender as well as a flush draw. Can't stop me from betting at this point, so I end up making it $200. Again, looking to size up, and if I end up hitting my outs on the river or not, it doesn't matter to me. I'm going to be pretty much blasting off on any river card that doesn't pair the top card pretty much. My opponent thinks about it for quite some time, and he's obviously in some distress here. He's not happy about the situation. He's kind enough to show the vlog, as he is a viewer of the vlog. he folds king 10 offsuit. So a massive, massive fold by him. He does mention that if he had a spade, he'd feel pretty comfortable making a call, but because he doesn't and the board is getting even more dynamic, he had to make a big laydown. So lucky for us, he made a really, really solid fold. Now, it's usually going to be correct, but in this exact instance, it wasn't. And you can't blame a man for making a hero fold. Our action friend decides to raise it up from the hijack to $35. The action's over to me in the small blind. We look down at 10-9 of clubs. What a beautiful hand. One of my favorite hands in poker is a suited 10-9. Pretty much any suited connector gets me pretty excited. I decide to just flat call. The big blind calls as well. And we're going off to yet another flop that we flop even more equity as it comes king 8-4 with 2 clubs. Flopping the 10 high flush draw. We check it over to continue playing in flow to our friend who is the initial raiser. The hijack ends up betting $75, which is a little bit on the larger side. We throw out a $100 chip to signify a call. So does the big blind, and we're going off to a turn card that doesn't improve us at all as it comes to 4 diamonds. So not a great turn card, and probably not able to call any bet size here on the turn. Really hoping it goes checked through or a small bet is thrown out there. I check it over to the big blind, who then in turn checks it over to the initial raiser. He goes out for the double barrel play of all time as he makes it 250 bucks. Pretty large sizing, and unfortunately I'm just not going to be able to make the call here profitably, I don't think. So I end up making the fold, and the big blind ends up making the call. We're going off to a river with me out of the pot. That comes the ace of clubs. I mean, when you're running good, you just run good. Even when you get out of the hand, you're just like even showed and needled a little bit like, hey, why'd you fold? You know you're running good, right? In reality, I don't actually think like that. I think my fold was 100% correct and I just would have got lucky. The interesting thing here is that the big blind ends up leading for $360, which is pretty much what my opponent in the hijack has remaining. He ends up calling it off. The big blind shows ace 4 of hearts. So he rivered 2 pair and was calling down with bottom pair. Really, really interesting to say the least. We would have won a massive pot though there on the river. It is what it is. You can't win them all. And I'm really happy with my fold there on the turn. Just unlucky that in this exact instance, we would have won a pretty massive pot. It's time to move on to the final hand of the session, which is another fun one. In the following hand, the blind raises on for $20. And we're in the cutoff, and we look down at Queen 10 offsuit. This is definitely a fine hand to open from the cutoff, as we're going to be in position against everybody except for the button. I make it $60. Folds all the way to the blind raiser, who decides to make the call. And the flop comes 10-8-8 rainbow. Outstanding flop for our hand here. Couldn't ask for a better one. The interesting thing is that my opponent decides to lead out from the straddle for $90. Pretty large sizing, to be quite frank. This is like 3/4 the size of the pot. Don't know what to make of it, but I'll tell you one thing that I make of it is that I won't be raising this ever. So I end up making the call here. We're going off to a turn card that comes gin yet again, as it comes a queen of diamonds. Couldn't have asked for a better card. It does bring a backdoor flush run. It obviously completes the jack 9 straight draw from the flop. I now start talking with my opponent, letting him know that I'm going to raise pretty much anything he decides to lead out for.
If you bet, I'm going to raise. If you check, I'm going to bet small. Honesty.
He ponders and thinks about it for a little bit before eventually throwing out a very small bet of $50.
Well, I can't. That's too small to raise. Okay, I won't raise. I changed my mind.
Against a specific size, I'm going to be totally honest. I don't know what the hell I'm supposed to do. I feel like raising is obviously the best play, but it might slightly be overplaying my hand at this exact juncture. And the one thing I do have to consider is that my opponent's been playing unbelievably tight to this point. And the last thing I want to do is make him run away with some of his random bluffs. And moreover, I want to allow him to value on himself and possibly spring the trap on the river. I end up just making the call. We're going off to that river card that comes a 5. Yet another brick. At this point, my opponent again thinks about it for a little bit before eventually throwing out a bet of $150. This could be a spot where I go for a raise, and I think I misplay it by just calling here. It might be a little too nitty. Being afraid of specifically like 2 or 3 hands like jack 9 and some kind of suited 8. It just seems a little nitty, to be quite honest. So I'm going to needle myself here a little bit in the commentary booth. I think that was a little bad. I think I should be raising here. I end up just making the call. I immediately let my opponent know that I have top 2 pair. Even he's astonished at that. So he did end up value owning himself. And I don't know if he would have called a raise on the river, but I mean, it kind of is what it is. At the end of the day, I ran unbelievable today. I feel outstanding. I don't think I could have played anything much differently besides this last hand. And yeah, we're pretty satisfied. Let's kick it over to me to talk a little bit about how we feel. And make sure to stay to the very end, because there's some really, really important stuff that I want to let you guys know about. And it would mean a lot to me if you stayed.
And just like that, our session has come to an end. Usually I give you guys all the numbers and totals now, but I want to take you guys somewhere a little more quiet maybe, or at least more intimate. Kind of talk to you guys about some things, I don't know, some personal things. So let's change the scenery up and talk about the numbers and some other stuff. Alrighty, so we've now traveled our way to my restaurant, making things a little more personal. Forgive me as I'm here joined with Stephanie. Stephanie's my better half, so let's talk a little bit about today's session, what I want to talk to you guys about. So we were into today's session for $1,700 or $1,600, excuse me, and we were out to today's session for $55.35. So that is a positive of nearly $4,000, $39.35 for the mathematicians that are carrying. Yeah, we're feeling pretty good. Obviously, winning that much is outstanding. Yeah, winning 4K in a 1,500 max game is pretty nice. So the one thing I will say before I switch subjects is, luckily, from the last episode you guys saw on Friday, which is when I lost that massive pot to end the session, our friend, our super action friend, was actually the one that we ended up winning some pots against today. So we're going to keep battling. So hopefully this time was my turn to win, and hopefully next time it's his turn to win or whatever. At this point, I want to talk to you guys about something a little more personal, and that's just kind of like a big thank you. I know I kind of cheese you guys a lot and really don't mean to kiss ass. I'm just being as genuine as I can. The fact that people care enough about the vlog and my journey in poker to subscribe and to like and to comment. It's almost weird, but I'm gonna keep doing it because you guys seem to like it and it's fun. It's really fun. But I just wanted to personally thank you guys for helping us reach 15,000 subscribers. If we don't reach it in this video, we'll reach it at some point this week, hopefully. And I just owe you guys the world at this point. And I'm gonna keep trying to make things more fun for you guys. It's one thing to cheer me on, and obviously if I win, we're all happy, I guess, right? Or I guess some of the haters are disappointed, but whatever. I want to find a way to continue to give back in some facets. So if you guys have any ideas, let me know. Besides, obviously, the WSOP, which is a really big deal and a lot of money that's tied up in bringing out 5 winners for that, I want to do other work. None of this is even existing without you guys. And to think that 15,000 people care about this vlog, care about this adventure enough to come hang out with me and to come sweat with me just means more to me than you guys will ever know. So I just want to, like I said, thank you guys personally from the bottom of my heart at the end of today's session, just so that there's no confusion ever. I am super lucky and eternally grateful to have you guys' support. And you guys constantly, like I said, you guys have been wonderful. These videos have been unbelievably strong. The community is growing at a rapid pace, and again, I owe that all to you guys. So if you guys can think of any other fun ways I can give back, I'd love to do it. But in honor of the 15,000 subscriber mark, I'm gonna hold another giveaway this week. We're gonna give away $500. I think that was 6, but we're gonna give away $500. So I'll pick 5 winners. Each winner will get $100, and we'll start with that. How about that? It'll be pretty simple. Just comment down below on today's video, congrats on 15K or something, and you'll guys just be auto-entered. And that should do it. I hope you guys have a nice day. Stay safe, stay healthy, and more importantly, run good to the tables. I love you guys. Peace. By the way, that's my dad over there. That's the man, the myth, the legend. Dad, you want to say hi to them? Say hi to the people.
That's the people. Close to broke, right?
Yes.
I need a new sweat for close to broke.
My dad reps my hoodies when he goes abroad. So anyways, good luck to the winners, guys.